Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Dr. Jesse Abend. I'm a family medicine doctor, and I am the founder of HealthieCoach, which is a virtual nutrition coaching company. Very passionate about nutrition, preventing disease, and helping people get healthy through doing the proper lifestyle behaviors. That's eating well, exercising, taking care of oneself. And so today's podcast is extremely important because it's on a topic that I think everyone should have learned when they were younger, including myself, and because it is about something that essentially makes us up, keeps us alive, keeps us healthy, and that's nutrition. I'm going to be talking about the basics of nutrition, Nutrition 101 in this podcast. It's based off of a presentation I've given many times before. And again, it's something that everyone should understand. Everyone should understand the purpose of food, why we eat, other than just it tastes good, it's a fun social activity. And that is a reason why we eat, and it's a luxury of why we get to eat food in today's day and age. But we need to understand the survival reason, the health reason why we eat food. And that's going to help all of us. It's going to give us a new perspective on why we're eating. It's going to help us become more aware every time we're eating. And it's going to bring us to question those times when we're eating. Oh, do we need to be eating this now? Is this important to my health? How is this going to affect my health? I know it's enjoyable mentally, but is it something that is going to benefit my health long term? And do I really need to have this food? So Nutrition 101, let's get started. Something everyone should know. And by the end of this podcast, you are going to be well armed in nutrition. You're going to have a great fundamental understanding of what it is you should be eating. And you'll no longer have to completely rely on people who may not understand it themselves, who are trying to sell products or push certain ways of eating. You can make your own choices and you can listen to them, but then you can bring it back to this fundamental understanding and see if you really agree, if that's really the way you should be eating. So, like anything in life, understand the fundamentals, understand the basics. It allows you to think independently and make your own choices, because we are all different. We all are going to require different types of foods, a different diet that's personal for who we are. So with that said, I'm very excited to get this going. Let's begin and let's go. So let's define what nutrition is, right? What's the purpose of food? Why do we eat? And if you look it up, you'll find a definition that somewhat says it is the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth, right? That is nutrition. That is why we eat. You've heard the saying before, you are what you eat. That is completely true. So understand, if you want to be a healthy, strong person, then you're going to have to eat foods that provide you with that health. Now, my definition of nutrition, and I think this is an easy way to understand it for everyone, is you break nutrition into essentially two things. Understand that nutrition provides us with essentially two things. One is it provides you with energy, right? That's what most of us know nutrition for. We think about energy, calories. Oh, that has too many calories, and oh, that doesn't have enough calories. Oh, eat these many calories per day. Yes, a huge part of why we eat is to sustain life, to give us the energy that we need to do things and exist and survive. Now, although that is an important part of nutrition, it's not all. And this is something I think most people really don't understand or think of when it comes to eating healthy, because we focus too much on the calories. So the second part of nutrition is the nutrients. Nutrition provides us with the nutrients that our body needs to not only give us the energy, but to function. And that makes us up, right? We are what we eat. And all of these types of nutrients provide all different functions to our body, from our brain, our nerves, our heart, liver, eyes, cells, all of these nutrients do all different things. So we need a variety of nutrients that we find in a variety of foods, right? Typically whole foods, that give us what our body needs to maintain and optimize our total body health. So again, nutrition is energy and it's nutrients. Think of those two things every time you eat. So let's talk about nutrition as energy in first. So again, we understand that part of why we eat is to get calories to do things, right? Our bodies require a certain amount of energy in order to function and survive. So our basal metabolism, this is the rate at which our body uses the energy at rest, right? When we're not even thinking or doing anything, our body needs a constant supply of energy just to stay alive. This includes maintaining our vital functions such as breathing, blood circulation, regulating our body temperature, cell growth, brain and nerve function and development, etc. All the things we don't even understand that are going on inside of us, our body is using energy to keep us alive. That's about 60 to 75% of our daily energy use is going to functions we don't even know are happening. And then the rest of the calories that we consume and that's being used up is then going to physical activity, right? Our muscles doing things, because our muscles need energy to move and do things. And then if we have extra energy that's not used from our basal metabolism, or that's not used from our physical activity, that extra energy gets stored as fat, right? Our bodies are smart. We have like a bank, and fat is the money that goes in our energy bank for times when we don't have energy to take in. Then our body can take from inside and use it up. Very simple. The amount of energy that is in food is measured by the calorie. We hear calories, all that means is that's the amount of energy that you'll get in that food. Like I said, if you eat more energy than your basal metabolism uses, you do physical activity, the extra energy is going to be stored as fat. So food is made up of different nutrients, like I talked about, and most of these nutrients are going to be broken down and converted into energy. Yes, the most of the nutrients that we eat are broken down and converted into energy, and it's for our bodies to use. And these main nutrients include fats, carbs, and even proteins to a degree and circumstance. And these macronutrients, because they're the large nutrients, fats, carbs, and proteins, are then converted into energy for our body to use towards our basal metabolic rate, right, at rest, and whatever physical activity we need to do. Any extra gets stored as fat. So let's talk about carbohydrates being used as energy. Some people love carbohydrates. Some people hate them. So are they good? Are they bad? Carbs provide a highly efficient fuel source. They're great because our body can break them down and use them so effectively for energy. When they're broken down into their smallest unit, and that's glucose, right? A very simple sugar. And that glucose can either be used, right away, or it can be stored in the form of glycogen or fat. So glycogen is a great storage molecule for glucose. If you're taking in carbohydrates and you don't need the energy right away, your body's not going to use that glucose instantaneously. It's going to store the glucose as glycogen either in your muscles or in your liver. And your body can store about 2,000 calories worth of glycogen. And what's great about glycogen is that it can be used very quickly. Your body can break it down and use it right away. It's why it's great for high intensity exercise, right? Think about it this way. If you have glycogen stores in your muscles and you're starting to use and move them, well, you don't want the energy being stored somewhere else in your body. You want that energy being stored right where it's going to be used. And that's why glycogen is a great storage for quick access. Get it to be used right away. Your liver can also store a lot of glycogen as well and break it down and then shuttle it over to the muscles and areas of body that you need to be using it. So now that we understand how carbohydrates are used as energy, right? We understand that they're a very efficient source of energy. Our body can use them right away if we need it. Now let's talk about fat. Fat is typically a huge fuel source for us. And when there are no carbs or glycogen available, the body then turns to fat to be used as energy. So let's say, right, you've used up all of your glycogen stores, and now your body has to use something else, right? Or it can't do anything, it can't survive. And that's when it starts to break down fat. And fat is not able to be broken down as quickly, hence why it's not used as efficiently as carbs. But fat has more energy per gram. It has 9 calories. Essentially, fat has more energy storage per gram, meaning if your body wants to store 1 gram of a substance, it's going to want to store fat because it has more calories, which means your body can get more energy off of that gram from fat than it can from the glycogen or carbohydrate, which is why fat is our preferred mass energy store. That's what fat is. Fat is your bank. If you've got a lot of it, you're energy rich. It's a lot more complicated than that, but yeah, that is how you store energy efficiently. It cannot be broken down as quickly. So again, after you use the carbs and glycogen, your body then turns to fat to use and break down. Protein. Protein is not typically used for energy. Protein is used for energy when your body doesn't have enough carbohydrates, it ran out of fat, and then it has to use something for energy. So it breaks down protein, uses that as energy. Now, if you eat protein in excess, more than your body needs it, it's then stored as fat. Your body, again, think of it, it's efficient. So you eat too much protein, your body doesn't need to or cannot utilize all of it. It will then store excess as fat. So when you don't have enough carbohydrates or fat, your body is going to start using protein as energy. So we'll touch briefly on what weight loss is, because we were talking about energy. So this is an important concept because weight loss is directly related to how much energy you consume or don't consume. So you lose weight when your body essentially uses more of its stored energy than you're consuming, right? If it's using more calories inside your body than you're eating, then your body is going to start burning off your energy stores, which is the glycogen and the fat, and even muscle to a degree. Right now, if you want to calculate how many calories you need in order to lose a certain weight, you would have to calculate your basal metabolic rate, because what we talked about before is, right, your basal metabolic rate takes up most of the calories that you eat. So if you understand how many calories you need to sustain your basal metabolic rate, and also calculate in the physical activity that you do, you would understand you would have an estimate of how many calories your body is using on a daily basis. And then you would just have to eat less than that amount of calories. But it's always not that simple. You have to do it the right way. You want to make sure you're not exceeding a certain amount of calorie restriction. And from experience and even the many guidelines, they recommend to not exceed a weight loss or an energy deficit of about 2 pounds per week. Right? If you're trying to lose more than 2 pounds per week, it's extremely unsustainable, and your body is going to have a large and reactive counter reaction because your body doesn't want to lose weight. Your body likes that energy. It likes that bank, right? We like money. We like money in the bank. We like that extra fat because we know that it's going to keep us alive if we don't have food one day. You have to think about our evolution, right? We wouldn't survive. We're efficient creatures. We don't want to lose this extra. So if you restrict your calories too much, your body's going to have counteractions like slowing down its metabolic rate, It's going to increase hunger-related hormones. It's going to do things so that it's going to make it difficult for you to lose weight. So that's why you have to restrict calories in a personal way that you can sustain. You don't want to do too much too quickly. I recommend for most people aiming at first around a 250 to maybe 500 calorie deficit a day. And if you do that, you'll end up losing about a half a pound to a pound a week. Obviously, it's going to vary. But for the most part, you want to aim for about a half a pound to a pound a week. And yeah, it's going to take time, and you're not always going to lose weight, and you're going to gain it, but that's the process. You have to take it slow. All right, so that's it. The first part of nutrition, why we eat, was explained as calories for energy. All the macronutrients contain the energy for us to do things and to function. And we know what happens when we take in too much energy and what happens when we try to lose that extra energy. So part two, now what most of us probably don't understand and what we should really understand, this is the big one, especially from my perspective as a doctor, is that the majority of diseases and problems that we encounter as we age is due to poor nutrition. And it's not just taking in too many calories, it's the quality of the foods that you're eating. And the quality is important because we need a diversity of nutrients, because our body has many different functions and it needs different things to do different things in our body. And that's when it comes down to the quality of our food. What are the nutrients that are making our food up? So, part two, nutrition as nutrients. Very important. I like to say this part of food, think of it as like the building blocks that make you up and keep you healthy, right? You're not just using it for energy and burning it and saving it, but also many of these nutrients are actually being utilized in the structure of our bodies and in creating different functions in our bodies to do all different things. And I'll get into that more to further understand. So let's classify these nutrients first to better understand it. And we've all heard of macronutrients, right? Macros, macronutrients, and I named the big three before: fats, carbohydrates, protein. For the most part, are your three main macronutrients. And then there's also another classification, the micronutrients. Micronutrients include vitamins and minerals and are very important for your body and have all different functions. So macronutrients, other than just generating energy, which we've learned they do for the most part, not so much protein, but certainly carbohydrates and fats, they have other important biological and physiological functions that I'll get into in a little bit. Micronutrients are essential elements, right? Vitamins and minerals that are required in different amounts, and we need them throughout life that to enhance our physiological, or essentially what that means is just our body's way of functioning and to maintain and optimize our health. So let's talk about macronutrients, not the energy, not how they're used as energy, but how they're used as a building blocks. So let's start off with fat. Fat is used mainly as an energy source. However, fats also, right, when we hear about healthy fats, right, they obviously have other functions besides just energy. They're used in important structural and metabolic functions, such as cellular structure, right? Making up the structure of our cells. They're important for insulating our cells. Think of our nerves. If you need to transport messages and chemicals throughout our nervous system, you have to insulate it so things aren't going in all different directions. Transportation, your body's constantly shuffling things throughout your body, producing hormones. Obviously, we know hormones are extremely important and have all different functions, and regulating inflammatory responses. Yes, inflammation is good. And yes, inflammation also needs to be regulated. Inflammation is an important process that our body has. We also have to understand that our body also needs to downregulate inflammation as well, because if you have too much inflammation, it can damage your cells. But inflammation also protects. So fats. There are different types of fats. Typically, they're classified into saturated and unsaturated. And often we hear saturated fats are bad. I like to say there isn't a bad nutrient. I mean, very rarely is there. But saturated fats have important functions in your body. I think they tend to get a bad rap because in our typical, at least American diet, they're very present. And you're not getting the other important types of fats and nutrients as well. So just because we have a lot of it doesn't mean it's bad. We're just not eating it in the moderation and ratio that we probably should be. And then there's the other type of set of fats that also exist, and these are the unsaturated fats. And these are the fats that we typically hear as healthy. But again, neither is the healthiest or the worst. It's just we need them both in a ratio, and then essentially thinking simply moderation. Saturated fats typically found in fatty pieces of meat like beef and lamb, dairy products, coconut, palm oils. Unsaturated fats typically found in fish, nuts, seeds, oils. Right, we've kind of heard about that. And then the unsaturated fats can be further broken down into polyunsaturated fats that then can also be broken down into omega fats. So you can think about that a little bit. It's not that complicated. Essentially, different types of fats. A subunit of fats is unsaturated fats broken down into omega fats. And we've heard about the omega-3s, omega-6s, even omega-9s. We've heard the omega-6s are bad, the omega-3s are good. Again, ratio, moderation. All of them have important functions. So both types, omega-3s, 6s, serve for membrane and structural function, help with our vision, our nervous system. It helps with our immune and inflammatory responses, regulates our gene expression. Omega-3s you'll typically find in fish, grass-fed animals, nuts, seeds. Omega-3s contain fats that we've heard of like EPA, and EPA functions to reduce inflammation. DHA makes up about 8% of our brain weight. 8% of our brain, supposedly is made up of DHA, a polyunsaturated omega-3 fat. And ALA has roles in the heart, immune, and nervous system. So you get all these types of omega-3s doing different functions, different types of fats, all these different functions that are so important. And these, the EPA, ALA, and DHA are actually also called essential fatty acids because our body can't produce them, and we have to get them from our diet. And that's why having a diverse diet, making sure we're eating whole foods, there are essential nutrients that our body cannot synthesize itself, so we have to get them from outside food sources. Other functions that omega-3s have support heart health, mental health, brain development in the infant, reduce inflammation. Now, omega-6 fats. Typically, we hear, trying to eat too many omega-6 fats. Again, our typical diet tends to have more omega-6s than omega-3s. Typically, our Western diet gets, I think, around 16-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to 3s. And I think the recommendation is like a 1-to-1. So it's important to be conscious of the foods that you're eating. Just focus on a diversity of foods. Omega-6s are typically found in nuts and seeds like walnuts, hemp, peanut butter, eggs, almonds, cashews. Now, there are unhealthier and commonly overly consumed foods with omega-6 fats, and this is why they tend to get a bad rap, like soybean and other processed vegetable oils, processed foods, junk foods, fast foods. They typically are found in those foods. But if you eat the healthier options, you'll get that nice ratio. Now, the recommended amount of fat is about 20 to 35% of your total calories you want to get from fat. Everyone's going to be different, require different amounts. But for the most part, the average person, you want to get around that percentage. And then also focus on the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s is something to think about, right? You don't want that 16-to-1. You want to eat whole foods that, can also give you the omega-3s that are essential to your body. And some examples of these healthy sources of fats like olive oil, olives, macadamia nuts, almonds, pecans, hazelnuts, pistachios, peanuts, grass-fed meat products, fish, salmon, sardines, herring, mackerel, right? You can look up this list, but there's just healthy whole foods that give you that diversity of fats. Carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, we've learned, are used mostly for energy. However, carbohydrates are not just used for energy. They do have other functions as well. And typically you'll hear carbohydrates classified as simple and complex. Complex carbs essentially mean that you're eating a food that contains a lot of carbohydrate, but also contains other important nutrients as well. So a food, for example, like a fruit, vegetable, whole grain, beans, lentils, peas, potatoes, right? A whole food that's also giving you the fiber, vitamins and minerals, even protein, fat, that also contribute to a healthy, rounded diet. Simple carbohydrates you'll hear of as well, and these are typically the processed carbohydrates, foods that don't offer much besides just sugar. Carbohydrate is essentially just, for the most part, can be just sugar at its raw form. And foods you'll hear that are simple carbohydrates are typically like white pasta, white breads, soda, crackers, just that pure, easy access sugar, and it doesn't offer you really any other nutrients. So you may be eating and getting a lot of your calories, your daily caloric intake may be made up of just pure sugar, and you're not getting all these other important nutrients that I'm talking about. These are also sometimes referred to as refined carbs because, right, you're refining it, you're taking everything else out and just stripping it down to its carbohydrate base. And our bodies are attracted to this because, our number one objective is to survive and get energy, but understanding that food is not just about energy and that our body needs other nutrients is important, and which is why you want to try to focus on complex carbohydrates. Whole foods provide other nutrients as well. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but it's a type of nutrient that cannot be completely broken down by our enzymes, and it's found in plant-derived foods. And fiber, it can be classified into other types of fibers. Typically, it's classified into soluble versus insoluble, and even those can be broken down further. But the idea is that fiber essentially provides and helps our body with bulking, viscosity, and fermentation. So let's get into exactly what that means. Different fibers have different effects. There's different types of fibers, like I said, soluble, insoluble, and they contribute to our overall health in different ways. Fiber helps improve our fullness. It allows us to feel full and increases food volume without adding extra calories, right? It prevents overeating. It increases stool regularity, which is important. You want to go to the bathroom regular. It alleviates constipation by adding bulk to the stool. It even reduces the absorption of sugar, stabilizes sugar response post-meal, reduces fat and cholesterol absorption, and so many other functions as well. But it plays an important role in our body, even if it cannot be digested. And fermentable fibers are actually consumed by the bacteria that lives within inside of us. Right? We've heard of the microbiome, the gut biota, and that plays a very complex role within our body, our gut microbiome. And our gut microbiome uses fiber to then produce these fatty acids as byproducts. And these fatty acids actually are used by our own cells, our colon cells. So think about it like this. We're taking in foods, we're eating fiber. We're not using that fiber directly, but that fiber is actually feeding our gut biome that then produces a type of fat that our colon cells then use. And these short chain fatty acids that our gut microbiome produces when it takes in that fiber improve our immune function, decreases intestinal inflammation, increases absorption of minerals, and other functions. And you can find fiber in healthy foods like legumes, oats, rye, chia, barley, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, nuts, whole grains, seeds. So I'll talk briefly about whole grains versus white grain. We hear of whole grain, or maybe we don't know what that means, but what a whole grain is, it is what it sounds like, whole. So it contains not just carbohydrate, but it contains important vitamins and minerals. it contains different types of fats, even proteins. And so you've got like this diverse food group compared to if you're just eating a white grain, it's just pure carbohydrates, maybe with some protein, but that's it. You're not taking in all those other nutrients that are important for health and to maintain a overall healthy body. So recommended daily amount of carbs that you should be taking in, around 45 to 65% of your total calories should be from carbohydrates. So make sure that they're not refined carbs, right? Because we want to make sure we're taking in a diverse nutrient panel. So focus on whole foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, lentils. Focus on those complex carbohydrates, not the simple.